and so it's Mexican Christmas. So I hope you guys enjoy. I'd like to thank our creators, Charles Curran and Don Adams, Eric Marcus and Bob Wilda, as you can see here, for our ticket master, Mike Zwick, Pete Bills, Mark Weinstein for our great programs, Jim Gundel and Alex Sahara for the website YouTube, and of course, Pete Landrum, who isn't here, for being our Zoom guy. Right now, I'd like to invite Denny Jarvie up to do our invocation.
Greetings, everybody, in this holiday season. Would you please join me in prayer? We beseech thee, O Heavenly Father, to bestow thy grace upon this meeting. We joy our fellowship with one another. May we grow in stature so that we may be able to give more of our friends in Rotary, and in turn give strength to the ideals of Rotary in the service to mankind. Amen.
Amen.
I actually would like to take a minute, if you guys could bow your heads. I would like to pray. I know with the holidays, everyone's excited to see their family. But I would like to take a moment of silence for all of our members who have passed away, and more importantly, their families during the holiday. I can only imagine how tough it's going to be for them. Thank you. Secretary's report, David Cusack.
All right, we have a few guests here. Teresa Geraci has a guest. JR. Brian Lampton has a guest. Cool. Everybody knows my better half, Karen.
Darren? Oh, Dick.
Dick Gould has a guest.
Oh.
Yeah.
Hello, AJ.
Oh, I'm sorry. So we have 52% attendance today.
All right. Thank you very much. Sergeant at Arms, David Fleming.
All right. All right. A new rallying cry in Congress. Lock Meadows up. Lock him up. Lock him up. Urban Meyer's daughter vows war after his firing from the Jaguars. Federal judge in New York overturns a $4.5 billion settlement between Purdue Pharma, the makers of OxyContin, and the Sackler family that owned OxyContin. A 13th century Scottish castle is for sale for the first time in 150 years. So here's a real bargain. 11.3 million pounds. That's something like $15 million. 1,500 acres. I mean, I think that's a steep. North Korea reportedly executed 7 persons for watching or selling K-pop videos. Whoa, that's. Oh. Wisconsin over Louisville to reach the National Women's Basketball Championship, and Nebraska beat Pittsburgh, so they'll be in the final. President Biden tells Kentucky, you will recover and you will rebuild. And the World Health Organization decided to skip the letters Nu and Xi in the Greek alphabet and name the new coronavirus variant Omicron, because a low spokesman explained that Nu is too easily confounded with new, N-E-W, as in new, and Xi was not used because it is a common last name. At least in China, it's a common last name. It's a good week for dogs after researchers at Britain's University of Liverpool found that many cats exhibit psychopathic traits, including meanness, disinhibition, cat unfriendliness, and human unfriendliness. So if you're thinking about a pet for a Christmas present, think about a dog rather than a cat. It's a good week, according to this article, for Texas after actor and self-described philosopher, poet, statesman Matthew McConaughey decided that he will not run for governor of Texas. He advised disappointed fans to just keep living. On the other hand, it was not a good week for Christie, former governor of New Jersey, who after a national tour that included interviews on nearly all the major networks, sold only 2,289 copies of his new book on saving the Republican Party. Maybe nobody wants to save the Republican Party. It's a bad week for true believers after Trump lawyer Lynn Wood released a recording in which retired general and fellow Trump supporter Michael Flynn called QAnon total nonsense. Flynn, who has publicly endorsed QAnon, allegedly said that the far-right conspiracy theory was invented by the CIA to, quote, make people look like a bunch of kooks. North Korea has banned people from wearing the signature leather trench coat favored by Kim Jong-un. Imitating Kim's look, authorities said, is a, quote, impure trend to challenge the authority of the highest dignity. Okay. And hundreds of people have tried to hire a paid killer through a false website called rentahitman.com. California resident Bob Innes launched the site 16 years ago, incorporating fake customer testimonies and industry award citations. Some 400 people have since filled out a service request form, including personal details for themselves and their intended targets. Innes forwards the applications that look serious to law enforcement, which has resulted in the recent conviction, for example, of a Michigan woman who wanted her husband dead. I don't get it, Innes said. People are just stupid. Sign up for his website. And a new combat sport is vying for a slice of the competitive world of pay-per-view TV. Wright State might want to add this to its sports repertoire. Pillow fighting. Competitors at the Pillow Fight Championship in Florida will be armed with queen-size combat pillows made from nylon. The league CEO, Steve Williams, says it's not something where you sit there and laugh with feathers flying. It's serious, hardcore swinging with specialized pillows. And finally, after a rabid fan of the University of Nebraska's football team passed away, his sons ran an obituary calling on friends and family to place an irresponsibly large wager on Nebraska beating Iowa in lieu of flowers. And fans responded. The obituary for Milton Andrew Munson Jr. spread through social media and sports radio. People pledged a total of nearly $6,000. Quote, if the ghost of my old man can't will the Huskies to victory, then they truly are a lost cause, tweeted his son Todd. Sadly, they were a lost cause. Cornhuskers lost 28-20. Okay, so 9 important facts to remember as we grow older. Some of us are growing older more quickly than others of us, so these facts are important. Number 9, death is the #1 killer in the world. Number 8, life is sexually transmitted. Number 7, good health is merely the slowest possible rate at which one can die. Number 6, men have 2 motivations, hunger and hanky-panky, and they can't tell them apart. If you see a gleam in his eyes, make him a sandwich. Number 5, give a person a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a person to use the internet and they won't bother you for weeks, months, maybe years. Excuse me. Number 4, health nuts are going to feel stupid someday, lying in the hospital, dying of nothing. Number 3, all of us could take a lesson from the weather. It pays no attention to criticism. Number 2, in the 60s, people took LSD to make the world weird. Now the world is weird and people take Prozac to make it normal. And number 1, the number 1 important fact to remember as we grow older is life is like a jar of jalapeno peppers. What you do today may be a burning issue tomorrow. Okay. And a few axioms from the wonderful philosopher Will Rogers. Will Rogers. Never slap a man who's chewing tobacco. Never kick a cow chip on a hot day. There are 2 theories to arguing with a woman. Neither works. Never miss a good chance to shut up.
That was a hit.
Always drink upstream from the herd. If you find yourself in a hole, stop digging. The quickest way to double your money is to fold it and put it back in your pocket. There are 3 kinds of men. The ones that learn by reading, the few who learn by observation, the rest of them have to pee on the electric fence and find out for themselves. If you're riding ahead of the herd, take a look back every now and then to make sure it's still there. After eating an entire bowl, the mountain lion felt so good he started roaring. He kept it up until a hunter came along and shot him. The moral of that story is when you're full of bull, keep your mouth shut. Okay. So I couldn't find my birthday sheet. Did anybody have a birthday this past week? Is anybody going to have a birthday this next week? Are any of your spouses going to have a birthday this next week? Is anybody late today? Ah, late, Mark. Okay. What else could I find you for? Did anybody not have their picture in the paper today? Yeah, Zwick really likes that one. Yeah, okay. So here are some fines. If you are not vaccinated, that's $1 fine. In fact, that's a $2 fine if you aren't vaccinated yet. If you have a cat, that's $1 fine. If you have read Christie's book on how to save the Republican Party, that's $1 fine. If you have worn a leather trench coat, ever worn a leather trench coat, that's $1 fine. If you've ever hired a hitman or engaged in a pillow fight, that's $1 fine. And with that, Mr. President, I will turn the podium over to you for the collection.
Thank you. Happy Buzz. Dave. On Sunday, we add another college graduate to the family with the first of our generation, of our next generation of our family to get one. Reed Thomas Cusack graduating from the Ohio State University in 3.5 years. Wow. That was quicker than you, wasn't it? A lot. Anyone else?
Last weekend, the National Ohio Rider Scouts and Swimming in the competitive swimming in December, men in my 8th bracket, 65-69. I came in 2nd place in all 3 events that I swam in. I saw the medal. So, wow, congratulations.
See, the first place person wasn't a Rotary member, so that's fine.
Yeah, I got a couple happy bucks. Last Thursday, a week ago yesterday, my heat pump quit. And so I had to have a new one put in. It took me till yesterday for them to get it done. So we had to go spend the night Saturday night at the Holiday Inn because it's a damn cold. Serviceman, one of the guys that came out, bought one of my John Deere tractors. I don't have to move. Another guy put an ad in the trading post the radio program, came out and bought one of my Corvettes, so I don't have to move in. So I'm thinning out the herd, and I don't have to move so much for it. Yeah, whatever kind of happens. Yeah.
Anyone else?
So I got a happy look for tonight. Me and Shannon get to be sleeping Friday. We're gonna spend the at lock-in Boy Scouts 242, video games, prep board, and not in games. Tomorrow morning after we go to practice tomorrow. Well, hopefully we don't kill each other or anybody else. And I also have 19 happy bucks for 19 years.
We'll see if you guys are still sitting next to each other in January.
I have a happy bunch. Shannon and JD are watching my son today.
Anyone else? All right, perfect. We do have a couple announcements real quick. As mentioned, tomorrow is our annual Christmas basket, so we'll be at Dots Market in Bellbrook at 8:30. All right, next week, no meeting next week. No meeting the week after that. I am offering a makeup. If you do show up, no one will be here, including the club. But if you take a selfie, we'll count that as a makeup. But no one will be here, so don't show up. Let's see what else we got here. Yes, quick announcement. Brandon's president-elect. Right now, he is trying to gather filling his board. So we're in the process of that. If you are interested in becoming more involved in Rotary, I believe there's 3 positions open on the board. Please reach out to Brandon. You could reach out to these people as well, and I want to thank them for volunteering. Mike Canada, who didn't have a choice, he's past president. Jim Gundel, Vinnie Jarvie, and Alex Sahara. Appreciate you guys volunteering to be on that board. But if you are interested in joining the board, please reach out to them. I'd like to invite Teresa up here, please. I'd like to present this to Teresa. She is our newest Paul Harris Fellow. So she's got her certificate here, and of course her jewelry. Yes, absolutely. So we have the Paul Fellow Award is anyone who contributes $1,000 under their name to the Rotary Foundation. So thank you again, Teresa. Other than that, anyone else have announcements before we do the ticket drawing? All right, ticket drawing.
And the person who's holding ticket number 2369305 has the opportunity to draw from the line.
All right.
Oh, Jimmy Kendall. All right, Jimmy Kendall. We don't, Mr. Treasurer, do we know how much money's in the fund?
$337.
So, but it will not go to Jim Kendall.
All right. Hundreds. As a reminder, half of our proceeds for the drawing goes to, of course, our annual Christmas basket. Right now, I'd like to invite Mike Zwick up for our newest segment, Rotary Heritage Moments. Mike.
We're going to do this once a week. It's going to be short and sweet. I'm going to document it. Mr. Gundel is going to post them on the website so we have some idea of the history of this club. We have not done a real good job of documenting what we do, and I'm going to make most of this up as we go. Oh, yeah, we should have had a microphone today. this in January, but because of the season and because we're doing Christmas baskets tomorrow, I thought I would like to launch today and talk about the history of Christmas baskets. And I've got the historian sitting over here in the corner that's going to help me, but I'm doing this from memory. I think we go back to like 1989, something like that.
For the Christmas basket?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Something like
Yeah,
that.
it was in the 80s.
So at the time, we had no idea what we were doing. We made it up. We somehow got a hold of Elaine Mercurio, and she gave us a list of people from Greene County that needed help. So on a Thursday night, with it snowing and raining, Lou Dockery and me, Dave Stanley, does anybody here remember Dave Stanley? He was a member of our club. Yeah. He was Elvis's stepbrother. He lived in the mansion.
Oh, yeah.
So we set off to deliver baskets. One of our assignments was, or several assignments were in really unique apartments in Fairfield. And late at night, in the dark, it was very interesting, but we got through it and we enjoyed it. As time went on, we refined that program, and it has come a long way. Fran and Beth, it is a well-oiled machine and it works really well. There's going to be one slide come up here that is a picture of me holding two toys. I was wrapping this week, and what I'm holding is gifts for a 6-month-old baby girl. And you have to put this in context. That may be the only wrapped gift these kids get. And that is very, very touching. Scott, do you have any?
John Nichols, which was a member of our club, was
Right.
also one of the first original chairs of that program.
Okay.
He chaired it for a long time, up until probably about 4 years or 5 years ago. He dropped out of it.
Out of curiosity, how long have we been partnered with Dots?
Dot
Yeah.
was just Filipino.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Lupino.
Mike Lupino used to donate all of the food.
Yeah.
Donating and packaging it. And we would pick up the boxes from his store to deliver. So we never bought anything. We always just delivered. We had members like Mike Lupino who were very generous, this club.
I think originally we didn't have toys, it was just food baskets.
Correct.
I think so.
And we added toys later.
Yeah.
One year, Ed and I were signed up to make deliveries. Well, he got assigned to go work. He had to fly an airplane or something. And Fran and I hooked up, and we went off and delivered our stuff. Well, we got to the point of work, and the lady was very kind. She said that, no, those people moved, and we're fine. We don't need it. You give it to somebody else. Well, in those days, every year there was one delivery that didn't happen. I would call my wife, who taught at Shaw School for 35 years, and say, who needs this? And on this particular year, Fran and I were riding around in my red Chevrolet pickup truck, and my wife said, there is a nurse's assistant senior that has a bunch of kids that could really use whatever you've got. So Fran and I drove up, took it to the porch and dropped it. And as we were getting back in the truck, the kids came out and they thought it was Santa and Mrs. Claus. And that was worth the price of being there. And I'm sure there's lots of stories out there.
Oh, yeah.
It's one of the two best feel-good projects we do. The other one's the dictionary.
Us that although many of us are well off to do.
Oh, and by the way, he's gonna say, you can still donate towards the baskets.
Oh, you can, but I'll tell you, I've been delivering baskets for a bunch of years since I've been in the club. And you wouldn't can't imagine some of the homes that I've gone to deliver baskets. Man, I travel all over the world, and I haven't seen homes like that in places like Costa Rica or other South American countries where there's a lot of poverty. You just go, I mean, just how can people live there and be in Beavercreek and live in the United States of America and be that destitute? And that we really do a huge job to make people, give some people something for the holidays.
And I don't want to step on anyone's shoes, but I'm not help plan this project. But if you've not signed up, I suggest maybe just show up early. Oh, there you go. There you go. But it is great.
My hope is that going forward, you will enjoy these heritage moments and help, as Scott did today, and Jim, and Jack.
I have a problem tomorrow. I volunteered to help distribute baskets, particularly unable to our baskets. So if there's a volunteer in the crowd that can ride my Suburban tomorrow morning, I would appreciate
Oh, I would love to drive that thing. Have you not seen his Suburban? What year is that?
it. 94.
This thing looks brand new. I mean, and we forgive you. You're probably still sore from putting up flags.
I have recovered.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect. Well, this works out because he's actually introducing our speaker today. So
There's another slide coming up here shortly of Jim Brown from about 25 years ago. Jim is a friend of the club. He's been here many times. He was here about 2 months ago and talked about recruiting and bringing Vitaly Potapinko, and I never say his name right. Can you fix me? Okay, all right. And that was fascinating. Jim is a storyteller. I've talked to his players from their national championship team, and they say, yes, he can tell stories and he can teach classes. And I've given his bio before. This is only the third time I've introduced speakers in 20 years. And I've introduced him at least twice now. So that makes him very special. And with that, Jim, come tell us some stories.
All right, I'll try. First time I spoke to this group was when you were at Walnut Grove Country Club.
Yeah.
I used to go there. I don't know how many times I've spoken at this club, but it's probably at least 20. And it's always a joy to come back and talk to you folks. And today about Wright State basketball, and those of you who follow basketball probably wonder what in the heck is going on. I mean, this is a team that they've won the conference championship 3 years in a row. They had 4 starters coming back. But I think the biggest problem, and I know Coach Nagy is so frustrated with what's going on, because he's really not used to this either. Ever since it's been at Wright State, it's been nothing but winning. And they're currently 2-7. And I feel like the biggest problem has been their schedule. They're still playing incredibly hard. You want, now the other night against Akron, that was probably the worst I've seen them play in terms of how hard they played and how focused they were. You know, they just come off final exams. They had played a game in 10 days. I hope that was the case. But what I think has happened is, you know, when you're a mid-major program like Wright State is, Bowling Green, Miami, those type of schools, and you're in a league where the only way you get into the tournament at the end of the year, which is the big goal to get into the NCAA tournament, is to win your conference tournament at the end of the year. And that can be very, very difficult, as Wright State found out last year. I mean, they dominated the league. They won the league with the best record by 2 games. They got to play their first game at home. They were up on the team 24 points with 6 minutes to go. And incredibly, they lost the game. And I sat there and did that game on radio, and I could not believe what I was seeing. And so my point is that when you're in a league like that, everything is based on that one weekend where you play 3 games. I mean, if you're at Ohio State or Michigan, I've told people this. Tom Izzo has been to the Final Four at Michigan State, the head coach of Michigan State. He's been to the Final Four, I think, 3 or 4 times. He's won the Big Ten Conference tournament 3 times. So if that rule applied to the Big Ten, he would have only taken his team to the tournament 3 times. He's been there 20-some years. So you get a sense of how difficult it is if you're a mid-major program and you're in a league that only gets 1 bid. So I know what Coach Nagy tried to do with his schedule, because I've talked with him about this, is to play a better schedule with the hope that you can beat some of these teams and get an at-large bid, which, you know, if your record is good enough and your status, if the rating is good enough, they'll take an extra team out of your league. Now, it's difficult if you're in the Mid-American Conference, the OVC, or some of these other conferences, and it's the same way in the Horizon League. The Horizon League has had 2 teams go to the tournament. In fact, Butler, when they were in the Horizon League, went to the Final Four 2 years in a row. So it's really difficult. So when he did his scheduling, and there's 2 things in college coaching. I mean, I was a college coach for 27 years, and I know how it is. The 2 most difficult things are recruiting and scheduling. And you think you take for granted scheduling. Scheduling is probably more difficult than recruiting, because you're trying to get a schedule of teams that you can beat, some that are going to be a real challenge, and some that you're really going to have to play well and catch them on a night when they don't do well, and to give your kids some experience. Like, you know, I coached in Rupper. You know, I look back on my coaching career, and I was fortunate. I was really fortunate. I coached in Rupp Arena against Kentucky 3 times. I was at Louisville, coached there, Freedom Hall, the Palestra, one of the greatest basketball venues in the country, in Philadelphia, coached a game in there, coached in the Carrier Dome at Syracuse. So I was blessed, but we didn't play those guys all the time. I mean, we didn't play Kentucky every single year or Louisville every single year. You picked and choose when you played a team like that. So what Coach Nagy, I think, was trying to do this year, he felt like he had potentially everybody coming back, including Loudon Love. He was a 2-time player of the year in the league, and just a great, great player. And up until the end of the summer, it looked like he was going to come back. You know, last year in college sports, according to the NCAA, that year didn't exist. So even though you were a senior, you could come back for this year because they didn't count last year. So Loudon could have come back, and it looked like he was going to come back up until probably the early September. So anyway, Coach Nagy worked his schedule out where he was playing the schedule that they have played, and it ends up being 7 games in a row on the road. Now, in college basketball, playing on the road is such a disadvantage. The fans are right on top of you. It's just difficult. And then on top of that, they have 2 bye games. A bye game is where you pay a team to come to your arena and play with the hopes of beating them. And like we go down to North Carolina State on Tuesday, they're giving us $85,000 to come down there. Purdue gave us $90,000 to go get our brains beat out over there. So it happens. I mean, and so when you, like University of Dayton had 3 bye games that they lost. You don't want ever that to happen. You don't want to pay somebody $90,000 and they come in and beat you. You just don't want that to happen. So anyway, we have this schedule. And in hindsight, you know, I've talked to Coach about this, and he just felt like that his kids, 4 returning starters, all juniors, a couple of them were all league last year. He felt like his team was prepared to compete in this type of a schedule. And unfortunately, he was probably wrong. The season started, they played a Division II team at home and beat them, and then they had to go to Marshall. And Marshall is in Conference USA. It's a league much higher than the league Wright State's in. And we played a good game down there. Very easily could have won the game. Lost it right at the end. We had, you know, when you play on the road in college basketball, a little call here or a call here at the end of the game can make a difference. And that's exactly what happened down there. There were a couple of calls at the end of the game that went against Wright State, and bingo, they lost the game. Then they come home and they got to go to Purdue. And Purdue, I don't know if any of you have ever had the chance to go to a basketball game at Purdue University, but if you are a basketball fan and you want to see a great environment, go to a Purdue basketball game. Okay. know, like I said, I coached against Kentucky, Louisville. Never have witnessed anything like what I saw that night. I mean, they give almost a third of the arena away to their students, I think. And it's a 14,000 seat arena. And there's probably only 700 chair back seats. 700 out of 14,000. Everything else is a bleacher. And I think they've done that on purpose so people don't get comfortable and all they want to do is cheer, because that's exactly what you ran into. I mean, it was an unbelievable atmosphere. And Purdue played that well that night as anybody I've ever seen in my entire career. They played a marvelous basketball game, got us down early, and we ended up losing. I don't forget what it was a lot. And I really think it had an effect on this team. And one of the biggest things anybody that competes athletically faces is confidence. You know, the best way to describe it, some of you guys I know play golf. And you get to the first hole and you got a 5-foot putt. And in your mind, you line it up and you look at it, I can make this putt. And you make it. So the next time you're faced with a 5-foot putt, you don't even think about missing it. You know you're going to make it. Well, it's the same way. And you know, you're an experienced person. You're a little older than an 18, 19-year-old, 20-year-old kid. And that's what, I think that's exactly what happened is these kids lost a tough game at Marshall, went to Purdue, got it handed to them big time. And then we went to Florida and we played 3 games in Florida. And there's not a doubt in my mind that if we'd have played at home against Lake Erie, gone to Marshall and lost a tough game, then had a home game, and then went to Florida, we'd have done a lot better. We lost 3 tough games down there. And it was like I was watching a team I had never seen before. We couldn't shoot the basketball. We couldn't defend anybody. It was just, it was so frustrating to watch. And, you know, you can just look at the University of Dayton. They did virtually the same thing. They lost 3 straight home games to teams they should have hammered. I mean, they were all ranked above 250 in the country. It's only 350 schools, and they were all above 250. Teams they had paid a lot of money to come in and beat, and they lost all 3 games. And they went to Florida, and they won their first game. And then they played Kansas and got a lucky shot at the buzzer, hit every part of the rim and went in. And it changed their season. It just changed their season so far. Now they've got all this confidence in the world. They come home and they start playing well. Wright State hasn't had that opportunity. We went to Florida, lost those 3 games, and then came home and went through final exams and played Akron. So I think what's going on right now is Wright State's kind of in a situation where I think they have an opportunity to turn this season around, and I think they will. What I think doesn't really, I had this conversation with Coach Nagy after the game the other night, and he thinks they'll turn it around too. But until they do it on the floor, you just don't know, because, you know, confidence is such a precious thing when you're an athlete. I mean, you take a shot, you think it's going to go in, you miss it. Now you're thinking the next time you're open, you hesitate. And you can't play that way. You know, in basketball, you got to react. If you catch the ball and you think, oh, okay, should I shoot it? Should I not shoot it? Or if I shoot it, am I going to miss it? If you're thinking those things, you're at a disadvantage terribly. So it's a situation now where Wright State has 5 of their next 6 games at home. They play tomorrow against Tennessee Tech. Tennessee Tech is 2-9 or 3-8 team they can beat. Then they got to go to North Carolina State. That's going to be difficult. But then they have 4 straight home games against teams that all have losing records. They're all conference games. And so I feel like they have a chance to get this thing turned around. But they've got to see some success. They've got to see, they got to see shots go in. They got to see help teammates out. And what's going on right now is they think they have to, try to do stuff they can't really are not comfortable with. They try to do things that take shots that maybe they shouldn't be taken, but they feel like you get behind, you got to, I'll hit a 3, that'll get us back in the game. And the 3's the wrong thing to shoot. So it's just, it's very, very frustrating for the coaching staff. I can see it. But I do think this, Coach Nagy's been around a long time. Coached in a lot of games. He took a team from Division II, like at Wright State, we did the same thing, went from Division II to Division I. Now, when we went from Division II to Division I, we had success immediately. We won 21 games, I think, our first season in Division I. 18 or 19 the second. When he went from Division II to Division I in South Dakota State, he had seasons where he won 6 games, 8 games, 9 games. I talked with him about this because he had an athletic director and administration that believed in it. Because most times you do that, you go from Division II to Division I, which is a huge jump, and you lose, you get fired. That's just simple. I mean, it happened in Northern Kentucky, it happened in Youngstown. I go on and on. Teams in Division II that made the jump to Division I. And so he went through that. So my point is he's been through this. These kids haven't been through this. These kids have all come from winning programs, tremendous success. It's like, none of us have experienced what we're going through right now with COVID. We've never experienced that. I mean, that's something that's new for us. And so, if you're a Wright State basketball player and you've had success the last 3 years and you're a junior now and you're not used to losing, and all of a sudden you question yourself. And you start to think about, what am I doing wrong? How can I correct this? And Coach Nagy has a coach's show on Monday night over at the Green. And we interviewed Coach Nagy, and then we interviewed a couple of players. And one of the players we interviewed the other night was Tim Finken. And Tim is one of my favorite players because Tim just plays his rear end off, never changes expression on the floor. His dad was his high school coach. He's from Illinois. Just a really neat guy. And so we're talking to him, and he said, Coach Brown, I've never been through this. But after the game, we're together. We talk in the locker room, we're together. We just don't understand what's going on, and so you can understand their frustration. And the only way I think they're going to get out of this is to have success on the floor. They can talk about it. Coach can talk about it. You can do things in practice, but it's got to happen on the floor. And I know this, a lot of coaches wouldn't be handling this nearly as well as Coach Nagy is. I go to practice, and he's not a yeller. He's not screaming at his guys. He told me an interesting story one time. His father, he's had a tough fall because his father passed away right before the season started. And his dad was a coach for years and years at Illinois and UIC. And so when you're the son of a coach, you have someone you can lean on. And he was telling me this story that when he was at South Dakota State, they had a game like what we had against Purdue. Got their brains beat out. He calls his dad. He says, Dad, I'm so frustrated with these guys. They're not doing this, they're not doing that. We just got our brains beat out. He says, what should I do? And his dad said, you should go in the locker room and tell them you love them. And I thought, what a great comment, because that's exactly right. It's not that these guys are not trying to do well. They're trying to do well. And this is not the time to be the kind of coach that's a screamer or a yeller or calling people out. Now you got to encourage them. And I know he's doing that, and just hasn't seen the results yet. So, as a guy that's got green and gold blood, I just hope they get this thing going, because I know they're good. They're a very good basketball team. Grant Basile had 37 points down at Marshall, played great. He's taking 3-point shots now. I got a friend that lives out in Arizona. Name's Doug Gage. He was a great golfer at Wright State. Big Wright State fan. And he sent me a message the other night after the game. He watched the game on ESPN Plus, which you can do. He says, Coach Brown, it's always great to listen to you, but you got to talk to Grant Basile, our new 3-point shooting point guard. And Grant Basile is 6'11", for God's sakes, and he has taken 35 3-point shots, made 5 of them. But that just shows you, kind of what's going on. He, in a normal situation, Wright State was winning games, he wouldn't even be thinking about shooting shots like that. But I got to hit a 3-pointer because that's going to help us get back in the game. So they're doing things that, aren't what they should be doing, and we just hope and pray that they get this thing straightened out, because I think this league, I thought this league going into the season would be much, much better than it is. We played 2 games in the league. We played Fort Wayne at Fort Wayne. Played very, very well, played really good defense. And then we had to go to Cleveland State a week ago. And you know, we had played a good game against Fort Wayne. 2 days later, we're at Cleveland. Now, Cleveland was picked to win the league. We were picked second. And we got beat by, I think it was 10 points, but we played better, but we just couldn't turn the corner. And so I think it's a winnable league. I think that, but we've got to get back to where we're playing with some confidence. And if that happens, this thing can turn in a heartbeat. And those of you who know, you know, that have former athletes yourself, you know how important confidence is. And it's not something that you just flip a switch and you do it. It's got to start in practice. Then you got to carry it over from practice to a game. And then when you see good things happen, then you start feeling better about yourself. You trust your teammates, and it can just snowball. And I've seen it happen. I mean, I went through this very same thing long before many of you were probably Wright State fans. We lost 10 games in a row one time. And I've thought back on it many, many times. What could have we done different? And there anything we did the right things. We just couldn't win. And it can happen to you. It's just part of it. I'll be honest with you, I'm glad I'm not a college coach right now, because what's going on in college athletics is pretty despicable. I mean, you have this thing called the transfer portal. It's the worst thing in the history of athletics. What it is you can go from one school to another, no questions asked. When I was coaching at Wright State, and you spend a lot of time recruiting these kids, a lot of time, maybe you start when they're sophomores in high school. You spend a lot of time, a lot of money going to watch them play and so on. And they come to your school, and the way it was when I was coaching was, if you wanted to transfer, you could, but you had to talk to your coach. You had to get permission to talk to another school, and then you had to sit out a year. Didn't matter what the situation is, you had to sit out a year. Now, I don't even have to go talk to my coach. All I do is get on the computer, get on the NC transfer portal, and I can go anywhere I want. And I can do it with no questions asked. And the other thing, I don't know how many of you follow this, but they have this thing called the NLI now. And this is going to create chaos in college athletics. Because, you know, one of the big elephants in the room is the money that's going to college players to play at certain schools. Nobody wants to admit it. Nobody will tell you that it's going on, but it's been going on since I was probably, maybe before I was born. There's colleges that give athletes extra benefits. And when I was coaching at Wright State, the manual for the rules was that thick. And there were rules in there like, if we brought a recruit into our campus for an official visit, and we wanted to take him out to dinner or lunch, and he brought along his 10-year-old sister because mom and dad didn't want to leave her at home, I could pay for mom and dad's dinner. I could pay for the recruit's dinner. I couldn't pay for the 10-year-old daughter's dinner. Now, I can tell you, I violated that rule every single time. The other thing, if I'm driving across campus, it's pouring down rain. I see a basketball player walking, no umbrella. If I pick him up, that's a violation. That's an extra benefit that I've provided him. So those are the things you had to deal with. Well, what's happened now is the NCAA is so fearful of getting sued that they've pretty much allowed everything to happen. Lane Kiffin, who's the head football coach at the University of Mississippi, he said the other day, we now have total free agency in college athletics. And there are players, I don't know if you follow this, but the young man who gave up his senior year in high school to go to Ohio State to play football, quarterback, he signed a contract with somebody for $1 million.
And never played it.
Never played it. Didn't play, transferred to Texas. Yeah, transferred to Texas. And I mean, I read where every walk-on at BYU, some guys paying their total tuition, room and board. At Louisville, every football and basketball player on a scholarship is getting $6,000 from some booster. It's not going to end. And the NCAA, fearful of being sued, allowed all this to happen. I mean, it's been going, I made the joke the other day where these coaches that have been doing this illegally for years now can sleep at night because they don't have to worry about it. They do not have to worry about it. You know, the NCAA doesn't have subpoena power. So they can't subpoena a parent's bank records, checking account. They can't do that. The FBI can, and the FBI did that about 2 years ago. The FBI wiretapped some different people, and there were some coaches involved. It started with shoe companies. And I don't want to get started on shoe companies, but shoe companies are, what they're doing today in college athletics is unbelievable. I mean, they are funding AAU teams with the hope that those players on that AAU team will go to the school where they provide shoes and uniforms. And so it's just, it's really not a good time to be a college coach. But what Lane Kiffin was talking about is total free agency. And I read an article just yesterday about Clemson University. And are they going, this is what the article said, are they going to be able to compete in this new environment? So I don't know if you've been to Clemson, South Carolina, but it's about the size of this room. It's really small. Beautiful place, but it's a small city. They don't have the industry, the wherewithal that like Columbus, Ohio has, or USC out in California, Los Angeles. The amount of money that they have in people that support their program, is Clemson going to be able to survive? And that's a good point. That's a good point. I mean, it's just, it's unbelievable what's going on today in college athletics. So I'm glad I'm a broadcaster. I do the game. I can go home and have a beer and talk with my wife in a civil fashion. She appreciates it a lot because when I was coaching and we got beat, I was not a happy camper. She didn't want to talk to me. So anyway, it's so much better to be a broadcaster, do the game, go home, have a beer, and forget about it. Are there any questions anybody has? I'll be happy to answer any question you might have. Yes, sir.
I have a quick question. So you were talking about the portal, the NCAA portal. Do you feel like the NCAA just said, you know what, it's been going on for years and years and years, so we might just let them do it? Or do you feel like there was money that was given to the NCAA by these, sponsors, shoe companies and stuff of that nature? Do you think it was, how do you feel like, you see it on both sides? Do you feel like that it's been going on forever? The NCAA is like, okay, well, we're just going to allow it to happen. Do you feel like that they were given money to allow it to happen?
This all started with Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is now the quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks. He's been there for several years. But he was a senior. He was a senior at North Carolina State. And he had to sit out a year, so he had a year of eligibility left. And he wanted to go to Wisconsin, near his home, to play. He transferred and petitioned the NCAA to play immediately. And they succumbed to that and allowed it to happen. And then what the NCAA did is they started playing God. And don't ask me why, but they started playing God. So if a guy did that and petitioned the NCAA, I think they took a hat and they put peas in there and they pulled them out. Okay, we'll allow this guy to do it. No, we won't allow this guy to do it. So there was no rhyme or reason to how they were justifying whether they were going to allow the kid to that petition to have an extra year to be eligible immediately.
Yeah, not to sit out a year.
No, not to sit out a year. And believe me, it was so frustrating for coaches because they would, well, they got a waiver. So my kidding. I mean, Tom Izzo had a kid come in and he hadn't done anything wrong. He wanted, his mom was dying or something. He wanted to come closer to him. Nancy Daniel turned him down. So I think to get to your point, I think the NCAA was fearful of lawsuits. And so they just said, with it. We're just open it
Free
up.
range, yeah.
Yeah, and that's what's happened. And here's the problem though, and I hope they address this. The way it is right now, you don't have to go tell your coach. You just get on the internet, put your name in the. So here you are a coach, and you've got 2 seniors on your team. I'm talking about basketball, and you sign 2 high school kids. Okay, you do that in spring. You have all summer, then you start your season. Well, here you are. You've done that. You get to August, and one of your kids decides, maybe you yelled at him in a workout or something. He's, I'm not coming back. So he transfers. Now you're kind of screwed. You know, you've lost a player, and what do? And so I think what should have been done is they should have had a 2 or 3 week period where, okay, you could put your name in the transfer portal, but if you don't and you transfer, you have to sit out a year. But they didn't do that. So I don't know.
I think the viability of the NCAA being the regulatory body over college athletics is going to be over the next 10 years.
I think the NCAA is on life support. I really do. And the reason I say that is, and they have a problem because 95% of the money that they get is off the 3-week NCAA Division I basketball tournament. That's their budget. 99% of their operating budget comes from that 3-week NCAA Division I. They get nothing from the football thing. A lot of people think they get nothing from that. So the Power 5 conferences run the NCAA. And so I don't know how it's going to turn out. I really don't. You ask what the next 10 years, because the Power 5 schools, if they decide to get away from the NCAA and have their own tournament, I think the interest in that tournament will plummet. Because, you know, they tell me this, I've never gone to Vegas that first weekend of the NCAA basketball tournament, but they say other than Super Bowl Sunday, that is the biggest betting day in the whole year, is that first weekend of the NCAA tournament. And you know all as well as I do, the reason you're so interested in that is because you have a mid-major team that gets no credit at all, beat somebody. That's why you're interested in it. So if you take that away and just make it a Power 5 conference, there'll still be interest, but it won't be the same. So but I do think the NCAA has shot themselves in the foot so many times. I mean, I couldn't stand it when I was coaching, and it's even worse now. I never forget.
You got time for one more.
When David's dad came into my office one day, all upset because his dad was the athletic director at Rice State when I coached there. His dad comes in, he throws his letter down on my desk. He says, "Jim, what did you do? What did you do?" What are you talking about? He said, "Well, we got this letter from the NCAA saying that you violated, and it's got this gold embossed on the top. That's serious." I said, "Mike, we didn't do anything wrong. I mean, what we did was perfectly legal. I'll tell you how you get in. It was right." But I mean, he got this letter from the NCAA with a gold embossed at the top, and the NCAA controlled. That doesn't happen now. I mean, Kansas, for example, got caught up in this FBI thing. They're acting like nothing happened. Nothing happened. But it's always a pleasure to come.
Thank you again. Always enjoy having you here, and we'll probably see you tomorrow. So
Okay.
I do have one more announcement I forgotten to announce. But I'm going to pass this around. So our Rotary district is trying to help out the victims in Kentucky. On these sheets, I'll leave them right here. There's going to be a truck that's going to be at the Dayton Mall on Monday and Tuesday. So it has the times listed. I believe it was 7:15 a.m. to 7:15 p.m. And that truck will be going to Kentucky. So if you're looking forward to donating something for the victims of the tornado, grab one of these on your way out. Anything else for the good of the club? Other than our book here? So as you know, you probably have 30 books at the library. It's called The Ice Monster, so I'll have you sign this. All right, let's stand for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very good.